I say salespeople are athletes. If the coach of your favorite sports team told the press, we're not going to practice this year, the fans would be livid. How can we be successful as a team? And people will get so fired up about that, and they won't hold themselves to the same standard of putting in practice.
Tell me a little bit about what got you into sales, Jon.
Well, what got me into sales was desperation. I had really no other options. And I say that because I made some poor choices early in life, and nothing illegal or criminal, but I went to college and I majored in English literature. And not that that's bad, but I did get a concentration in 18th century English poetry. And so believe it or not, the market hasn't changed much, but back in those days, that was not a very desirable major for employers.
Really?
Believe it or not. I remember at the end of college of my senior year, we had all these career fairs on campus, and we went to the same school at Notre Dame, and they probably had the same thing when you were there. But all my friends, and they were getting hired, and they would come back, and they got an offer from Arthur Anderson, and they, oh, thank you, and I'm going to put that over here. And by over here, they meant the garbage can.
Right through the shredder.
And so I was English major, wanted to be a writer, and was kind of obsessed with Ernest Hemingway. I still love his work. And he was a huge fan of Spain and spent a lot of time there. So I said, I'm going to go to Spain. So I got an open-ended plane ticket. I went to Spain. And when I was there, I really wanted to stay there, but you can't really formally work there, right? My degrees were about as valuable there as they were back home. And so I, in a way, learned to sell because I wanted to make money. And to make money, I had to have interactions with people. I had to provide some sort of value to people that they would pay me for. And it wasn't lucrative, but it was enough. I'd go down to the train station every day, and the Madrid train was all the Americans, all have English, Australians, Germans. And at first I approached them. I had an arrangement with a hotel that if I brought people to this little hotel, they would pay me. Well, yeah, you walk up to a stranger on a train platform, you got to do a pretty good warm up, and you got to do it pretty quick, right? So I remember I would show them my driver's license. And I'd say, if I could just have a minute of your time, if you all a phone on your camera on your phone, take a picture. My mom still is there, right? You can trust me. And then I would talk to them about how, hotels, they're very small, 5-6 rooms. There might be 10 hotels in one building. They're sold to brokers. Brokers resell. Stuff gets lost. You don't keep keys, all that type of stuff. And I'll take you to a place that's safe. And that was good. That was only like €5 a person. It wasn't going to keep me there. But then I realized that if I sold something else on the walk, I had a captive audience, right? I was at the kitchen table, essentially, of these people. And if I sold them something else on the walk to the hotel, then I could make more money. And that was the nightlife tour.
So wait, run it back. Yeah. You went to Notre Dame, graduated, could not find a job, went to Spain to sort of like be more like Ernest Hemingway, this hero, stuck there, had to basically work off the books, hustled any way you could. What was that pitch? I know you talked about showing the ID, the company story. I'm a guy you can trust.
There are no Holiday Inns in this town. In fact, there's no Holiday Inns, and all of a sudden, Spain hotels are very small. In fact, there's sometimes 5 or 6 on the same floor. What happens is the owners sell those rooms to brokers. The brokers resell those rooms. So they may buy that whole block of rooms, and they're obligated to resell it to make money. The problem is they're here today, gone tomorrow. They're not the owners of the hotel. You've got no connection. There are reports of things getting stolen. You don't even get to keep the key when you leave. Now, you can go and take your chance there, or you can sleep in the youth hostel with 20 other people that'll all be drunk and snoring all night. Or I can take you to a nice, safe, clean room. Won't cost you extra, but they will pay me for bringing you there. That was the presentation. Show my driver's license. My mom still lives there. You can trust me. And I was pretty successful at that.
So selling on value. There was urgency. There was scarcity.
Looking back on it, it was a pretty good sales presentation. But I guess just kind of intuitive. From there, it was on the walk. It was, you can go hang out at the bars by the youth hostel, and you can hang out and drink there. Or I can take you to 5 really cool places. We'll cut the line. That tour was only €20. Get people signed up for that. And then the bars paid you to bring them in. So you did it. Now, it gets a little better because the best sale was, Spain is a late night country. Around 3 or 4 in the morning, you're in a club. They're probably drinking. And, of course, a beautiful city as far as the cultural phase. My favorite place in the world, around Spain. But the cultural tour started at 9 a.m. the next morning. Everybody paid for it. I had one person show up in almost 3 years. Started up at 9 a.m. for the actual tour. And I gave it to her. But everybody paid for that one. Nobody woke up for that one.
You're like, oh, shit, I got to work. I got to actually give the tour.
That was the selling. And at the time, I looked back on it, it was selling. At the time, it was just hustling. It was just trying to find a way to do what I loved. I got involved working at a bull ring. I got caught working and ended up getting kicked out of the country for being an undocumented illegal worker. And that brought me back. So that was my journey. How I got into formal sales was I came back, and believe it or not, in the English degree in the minor in 18th century English poetry had not risen as far as desirability goes. And then there's like 3 years gap. There's no formal work history. So it made me look even worse. I sent out resumes. I remember 48 resumes I sent out. Nobody called me back. And I knew I had a slight connection at a home improvement company in Milwaukee. A friend of my dad's did some work there. I knew the name of the project manager. And called, I got a hold of him. I talked my way into an interview. They looked at me and they said, what everybody else has been saying is, well, I mean, now you're too young. We don't want you. You got no experience. I remember telling the guy, and this is just, again, out of desperation, I said, listen, you don't pay for your training, right? No, training class isn't paid. I said, then put me in it. And if you don't like me at the end of day one, fire me. At the end of day one, I got by. Day two was about all we trained, and then went on to the field. And without a lot of formal training, maybe just intuition, but just a desire and a desperation to do it, I found some great people that knew how to sell. They knew the art. They knew the science of it. And they would point me in the right directions. They would take me along. They would tell me what to read. And eventually got pretty good at it. And as you get good at something, that people want you to manage other people to make them better, and you move up from there. So it is something that I never really wanted to leave. Found a tremendous, a tremendous pride in it, but also a value in a career where you're paid what you're worth. And you can control that almost entirely. You're not asking for raises at the end of the year. As a salesperson, you just go sell more. And how do you sell more? You be better at what you do.
I think it's so fascinating that being in Spain, being forced to work, having to make some money to stay there, it seems like you almost stumbled on many of the truisms of sales.
To me, when I first got into sales was a job that it wasn't extremely highly regarded, especially amongst my friends. And one friend that was working in New York City, a friend of mine from Connecticut, and I remember going to see him after I was working 9 months, and I told him what I was doing. And he said, "Oh, what? Like, you're selling vinyl windows?" Like, yeah, I'm doing pretty good at it. I'm making a lot of money. So I came to see him, and his dream was always this: want to work at finance in Manhattan, wear a suit, go up at high rise. That was his thing. And I went to visit him, and I visited him in the lobby of a high rise, kind of like this, where he's wearing what I think is a nice suit. I don't know, right? But I think he's wearing a nice suit. We go up to the 40-something floor, look out over Manhattan. He goes to his little cubicle. And I remember saying to him, I said, man, this is everything you wanted, right? This is Manhattan. This is finance. You're wearing a suit. You're in the high rise. And I remember him ducking down below his cubicle, and he looked at me. He said, John, this job sucks.
Oh, no.
He said, I work 16 hours a day. He was analyzing citrus futures, something. I couldn't hardly understand what he was doing, but he said, it never over. He said, someday I know I'll make money. I'll move out. He said, but my parents are sending me money so I can live here. It's awful. And then I'm thinking, like, from the outside perspective, he is successful. I'm selling windows, and he's ridiculing me. Meanwhile, we're out at dinner. I'm buying everything because I got money, and he doesn't. But that was kind of, to me, the pivotal moment where I thought, okay, the prestige is one thing, like what your parents might tell their friends about and write about, but then there's also the reasons that you want to have a job and then are rewarded for yourself. Because when I took the first job selling, my intention was to take that job and put something on a resume. So I had 6 or 9 months of something where I could go do something that was from the outside visible as a real job, a fancy job, a job of status. And I got back to Milwaukee where I was living. I think it's like 9 months. What do I want to do? I got something to put on my resume. I've got a record of success that I can learn. I can master something. What do I want to do? And I thought, well, I don't want to go in Manhattan and wear a suit and high rise and work in finance. Certainly don't want to do that. What do I want to do? And to me, it was to be in control of your own success, like to be paid what you're worth and to have what you are worth be just based on the effort that you put in. And you don't have to ask for a 3% raise at the end of the year. You can write yourself a 50% raise in selling. Just get better.
Eat what you kill.
And, it comes back to Rillo, to bring it back to Rillo. The one thing that as somebody who tried to teach people that, the one thing we never knew was what we needed to specifically teach, how we could specifically help them. And it really came along with like, now I know how to help people achieve those things that I was able to achieve, but at much more effort because I didn't know what I was doing wrong either, right? And eventually you figured it out. So
Going back to your your decision making process, I mean, what a wonderful heuristic of not sure exactly what I want to do, but I definitely know what I don't want to do. And I mean, I'm really curious about your mindset. So before we got the cameras rolling, Gilge's ringtone is it's like a voice: execute, execute, execute. So I'm very curious about your time in Spain, discerning a career, making a career in sales, what that mindset was. If I were in your position, you know, I had a resume with a big blank space on it, I might feel imposter syndrome, but what drove you to success? What helped you achieve?
well, there's a lot of different factors. I think the first one is when you're making a decision to take responsibility for your own outcomes and stop blaming. I spent a lot of my youth, I think as most people do, we are blaming it on this or that, or this needs to change for me to do this. But I do believe this, and I came to this realization probably in something that I read early on, that there is always enough that you can control in any situation to make you brilliantly successful. There's always things that you can't, but if you're spending your time on the things you can't control, there's no time left over for what you can control. And you won't say, you don't have to be able to control it all, right? You want to do something outside. It could rain, you can't control that, but can you still have a great experience? Can you still have fun? Yeah, absolutely you can.
Can you dance in the rain?
Absolutely, right? Because there's enough that you can control. But if you're standing out there saying, man, this is awful, I need the sun to come out to be happy, well, then you don't have the positive experience. So that's the key, I think, is there's always enough in any situation that I've ever encountered in life, is that I focus on that which I can control. The other stuff then doesn't matter. And I will beat those people who are focused on what they can't control because they're not having any time left over for what they can. Sales really brings that out as an absolute necessity because there's always a reason that you can say why you didn't sell something. There's always an excuse as to how they didn't have money, they didn't have any interest, they're wrong type person. You can always come up with those things. But what could you control? And if you leave an appointment or any situation in life thinking, what could I control about that situation? And then focus all your efforts on doing that, right? There's always enough. There's always enough in what you can control to make you successful. So it's selling and it's in life. And I think there are a lot of parallels in selling and in success and in overall in your life. Right? And the first one starts with personal responsibility. It's good. It's going to be up to you.
Very interesting. It really comes back to, it sounds like what you're saying is having that internal or external, it was called locus of control, right? And they found, going back to Psych 101, right? Management 101, but those with an internal locus of control, focusing on those variables that they could control, they were happier, they were more successful, they achieved more in business. So yeah, I think there's absolutely something to be said of, hey, maybe I step into this home and it's the mother-in-law's decision and she's not there, but making that stone soup is what you have, right? Doing your absolute best to isolate those variables, attack those variables, give the best experience.
Absolutely. It is. I think and I ask myself this question oftentimes when I don't succeed in something, I ask myself, is there somebody in the world that could have succeeded in that situation? And the answer is always yes, right? I mean, take it to a sales appointment. If there's a company, you have 500 sales reps and somebody runs a lead, they didn't sell it. If you could roll back the hands of time 499 more times and have everyone in your sales rep, could one of them found a way to sell that? Absolutely, right? So in any situation, a good question to ask yourself is, could somebody else have done it? And if the answer is yes, somebody else could have done it, is okay. Now, how do I become that person next? How do I become what that person would have done? How do I learn that? What is that skill? What is that mindset? How do I become that person for the next situation come around and around it again? But if anybody can do it, then you can do it. You just have to find out who you got to become in order to be that person.
Right. And in your experience, what are those traits of the top performers?
If you took somebody who was an extreme high performer in whatever industry and you moved them into something else, I think they would do very well. Just like I think, if somebody earned $1 million and you took the $1 million away, I would bet on them to earn $1 million sooner than somebody that has never died, right? So I think, excellence leaves clues. Excellence is something that is almost universal. We get into this a lot with hiring decisions, and people oftentimes will look for skills. And I need somebody that has sold before. I don't want that. I'm not really interested in that. I'm interested in somebody that has the competencies and the characteristics that I can train to sell, because I can't train hard work. I can't train toughness. I can't train somebody to be willing to take critique. I can't take somebody who is driven to convince and to communicate well. But if I get all of that, if I get excellence there in those competencies, then I can put a skill on top of it, and that person is going to be successful. I have no preference whether or not somebody, if I'm hiring a salesperson or a sales manager, I have no preference for somebody that's done it before. That can be a hindrance because, unless they've done it with a high degree of excellence, I may have to overcome too many bad hats. But it's all to me about those competencies. And in selling, and I think like in general, one is grittiness, is toughness. You're going to get knocked down. You're going to get back up. The people that succeed brilliantly usually succeed after many failures. Use Colonel Sanders as an example, or 100 other people, right? They've got somebody that is willing to be able to self-critique and take critique from others. People have done it before. They've done it better. They figure things out. Will you accept the gift that they give you of advice? Or will you say, I know how to do all of this? That's a big one as well. So you have the ability, I think, to communicate. Question I ask people at interviews all the time. Tell me about a time you convinced somebody to do something that was best for them, but they didn't want to do it. And if they haven't ever done that, then they probably can't do it at a kitchen table selling a product.
Right.
So I think those are some of the big ones. I'll take somebody that has those from whatever industry, and I can make them successful in selling. I can't take somebody without those and make them successful in selling, because I don't have the time to teach you a work ethic.
I'm curious, when you're looking at new hires or people applying, how many of them typically have sales experience in the past?
It depends. I guess it depends on the season. Right now when things are slowing down, everybody's looking to jump ship. But that's not necessarily again, to me. I pay no mind to that. I would say it's probably in the area of 20-30% have some in-home sales experience. But, it's usually they left the other company because the leads were no good. The manager was a jerk. What you've done, you'll do again. That's who we are as creatures. We will tend to make commitments to certain patterns of behavior or beliefs, and we will stay consistent to them over time. So if somebody didn't work hard for the last boss, I would be a fool to think they will work hard for me. Of course. That's not a characteristic. It's not a competency that they have, right? So they're not going to do it for me. If they thought they weren't selling because the leads are bad at the last company, right? Leads are leads, right? They're going to think that here. If they haven't put in a lot of effort to succeed at something, effort is the other one, right? The interview question there is, tell me about a time where you succeeded primarily because of the effort that you put in. If they've done it, they'll do it for me. If they haven't, they won't. And then the skills, the actual what you say and what you do, that is the icing on the top. That's what you can give to the right person and can't give to the wrong person. Right?
So training.
Yeah, that's the training. And that's what really helps us in tremendously. Where now I used to tell people in 6 to 9 months, anybody we hire could be at the top. And now I tell them 2 or 3 months.
So if you were a hiring manager, can you list again what those core competencies that you would look for in a recruit are? I think you give 4 or 5.
Grittiness, toughness is one. Self-critique and ability to take critique from others. That's a big one as well. Persuasiveness, and can they convince somebody? And then effort, because if you have the requisite level of intelligence, how do you maximize your potential in its effort? Most of the time, I think it's true in life that we get paid for what we can do and not for what we go. And because what's in your mind has an application, but can you create the application? So a salesperson could know everything about selling, but can they speak it across the table to a customer in a convincing way? And if they can't, it doesn't matter. What goes in between is effort, and when I say effort, specifically is practice. You have to practice what you know in order to be able to turn it into a skill. I know, the big analogy with Rilla, that it's fantastic, and it's something that I think when Rilla first came, we were first introduced to it. I say salespeople are athletes. I've been saying that for years. What does an athlete do? They train all week to play a game on the weekend, right?
Right.
But if you look at it this way, it's an interesting thing, right? Is that if the coach of your favorite sports team told the press, and they have a press conference and said, we're not going to practice this year, the fans would be livid. You'd be calling on that guy to be fired and maybe hung. I mean, it'd be a serious thing. Because what you'd be saying is, how can we be successful as a team? How can we not going to win a game if we don't practice? We're not going to certainly make the playoffs.
Man.
We're not going to win a championship. It's unreasonable to think we could be successful at any level if we all practice. And people will get so fired up about that for this sports team that does not pay them and doesn't know they exist. Yet people oftentimes, and this is why they don't succeed, and this is why effort is important, is that they're the coach of their own life, right? Of their own sales career, whatever career they're involved in. They're the coach of that. And they won't hold themselves to the same standard of putting in practice. It is this, I think, this disconnect that we have. So why do I ask the question about the effort and degree? Why are those so important to me? Is because you can be the smartest person in the world. I can teach you everything. If you won't sit down and learn it, if you won't practice it, if you won't spend hours and hours working on it. I mean, if you want to spend an hour a day on your own future, right, you have no right to be upset when your coach says he's not going to practice because, you pay you and he doesn't pay you. So that's why that's a big one as well. But if you can find those things here, there, anywhere in any industry, if you can find somebody with those things, the skill is just what you teach them when you have the right person.
Jon is a power user of Real Intelligence. So Real Intelligence, a new product we have. The idea with Rilla now, before all these conversations were lost or in the field, if you want to give feedback to a rep, you got to ask them what went wrong, what did they do right. You got to kind of have to remember everything. Rilla can quantify all of it. So we can go back and coach real fast, but also we can look at things like trend line analyses. So I'm curious for you, Jon, we have all this data in the past. We haven't been able to see, haven't been able to access. Like when you're looking at this data, how do you separate the what happened from the why it happened? And how do you coach based on that difference?
Everybody knows how to look at it and analyze different aspects of the business, but maybe to give you one that is not as commonly used. What is, to me, it's to prove the concept to somebody that I'm teaching. So when I sit down with somebody, let's say we're going to talk about how we're going to warm up or present price or any of those aspects. They have to believe that what I'm telling them is going to help them. Now, my credibility, my experience does part of that work.
Sure.
Jon's saying this if he knows he's done this a long time. But that's not complete and is often not enough, right? So now what I can do with Real Intelligence is I can go in there and I can prove to a salesperson exactly how much something will improve their performance. I can go there and do a search like this, right? I can say, compare for me the closing percentage of appointments. And I usually qualify, right, where a price presentation happened because I don't want just maybe appointments that didn't complete. But of all the appointments where a price presentation occurred, show me the closing percentage on appointments where the price presentation was done to 4 or 5 star proficiency versus done at 3 and below. Right. So 3, you could cut it off at 3, you cut it off at 4. I find that 4 is excellent, 5 is amazing, right? You cut it off all you want, but it'll come back to you with data, and I've done that particular search. And what it tells me, when the price presentation, just that one little aspect, is done at a level of 4 or 5, closing percentage is 16% higher than when it's not. And I can take that to a rep and I can say, now, pay attention. I already have to say it. Like, wow, that much, right? Yeah, because you can lose so much work by being awkward with that price presentation, by not presenting it in a way with clear choices in the proper options. You can lose all that. So now I have your attention, right? So now when I teach you this, what is that person going to do? Well, before he said, well, Jon said I should do this, and it probably has some effect, but how much effect could it have? Now I got someone running over into a room because they want to spend an hour studying that because they don't want to get to their next lead.
16%, yeah.
That's why. So that has allowed us to do that with so many different training topics. And when you can get that complete buy-in, that hunger, like I got to know this is going to change me this much. That motivates what we talked about before, which is to practice, right? Which is the app that translates the idea into the proficiency. And now you can motivate people not by saying, I'm telling you it's going to work, or anecdotally it works, or this one time it worked, or, well, this is how we've always done it type of thing. It's real numbers, and you could never show anybody that before. So I don't think I ever had a huge problem getting people to pay attention, but I don't think I could. I don't think you can sell somebody that intensely on something without being able to talk specifics. And so Real Intelligence has allowed us to do that. And we use that a lot within the organization. This is what we're going to be teaching. Here's why. Not because Jon said, not because that's the way it's been done since the 50s. not because it's what mom and dad said so, right? That type of thing.
Right.
It's here's why, right?
So you have that piece of data. Hey, if you nail the price presentation, you get a 4 or 5 stars. There is a 16% differential that you're more likely to close. How do you talk to the rep about that number without rubbing it in their face, without saying, hey, see, I was right, but kind of leading them to the answer and then to take action and to execute?
Yeah, I think the general principle to me is, and how you approach somebody like that is that I want to ultimately be good for people, not good to them, right? And so there's a distinction there. So sometimes being good for somebody is we have to confront reality, what really is happening. You're not doing something. I'm very forgiving of mistakes because we're all going to make it. I'm much less forgiving of somebody who willfully decides to not do something. So you learn it right. You somehow fell off track. Maybe you heard somebody else do it a different way and you thought, that guy's pretty good, I'll do it his way. Maybe you just forgot. Maybe in all the things we've been asking you to learn, that one wasn't at the top for long enough, right? So now we know it, right? Now we know that there is we call it a mistake, right? Now, right, I'm going to be good for you to let you know exactly how much it's affecting you. Then I need you to do it because it's not just your performance and your income, it's the company's performance and income that's at stake as well. So for all those rate appointments we're giving you, right, that's your obligation. And I need to be able to be direct with that with somebody. Being good to them is like, yeah, you forgot. Hey, here's something. Maybe you want to try it, And, to me, being good to somebody might be not showing them the numbers so that they don't have to feel bad about how far they've fallen and how much they're failing. All the people in my life that I look back on and said, those people changed me for the better. None of them were good to me. They were all good for me. Right? And some of them told me things that I really didn't want to hear that hurt. But if people understand where it comes from, right? And this is something, I think anybody who's managing needs to work on. People need to understand that when you have those kind of conversations, it's because your desire is to make them better at what they do. It's like we hear with, a college football and basketball coach. Boy, he was hard on his players. And then 5 years out, when they ask people about that, ask former players about that coach, they have the fondest memories of how that person made them into who they are today. Yeah, I guarantee you they didn't like that they were running until they were throwing up in spring practice.
Right.
But they understood that. And even in the moment where it is hard, people understand that it is from a relentless care you have for them to succeed. Then you can deliver the hardest of messages, you can have the most difficult conversations. And people will understand that they don't like it. It doesn't feel good, but it's what they need. If they don't understand that you care for them, then you're just a jerk. And nobody wants to work for a jerk.
It's like Kaizen, right? It's getting 1% better each day. I think Kaizen is one of Toyota's values, but Japanese term that means like continuous improvement with every single rep at bat.
Yeah, that's a 1% better every day, I think, is a reasonable target. And look at it this way, like not sales and in life. There's been in finance, there's a rule of 72, right? You take the interest rate divided by 72, that's how long it'll take something to double. And in general, it works out pretty well. So if you get 1% better every day, which I don't think is unreasonable for somebody, especially who's new at something, 1% better every day, in 72 days, you'll be twice as good. That's amazing, right? So May 72 days. I mean, we're talking a little over 2 months to get twice as good at anything. Now, if you're passive about your approach, attend some meetings, maybe you listen to a podcast once in a while, and you get 1% better every week. Well, that takes then 72 weeks because now weeks is the unit. It takes 72 weeks to get twice as good at something, right? It's like 18 months. How about that over a lifetime? Somebody's getting 1% better every day, who's getting twice as good every 72 days, competing against somebody who's getting better doubling the proficiency every 18 months. It doesn't take many cycles to let you wiping the floor with that person, right? Person's not even in your league anymore. Compound that over a decade, and that's how people win, right? I practice an hour a day. And it's not an in-home sales presentation, although I do work on things with that because I want it to be sharp when I teach it. But there is always something that I'm practicing every single day. I'm writing, practicing Spanish. I picked up the guitar 3 years ago. I want to be in a band now. Powerlifting, that's something I practice. But every day I'm practicing things, and those are some physical things, and those are some more fun things. But it is the reading and the taking notes, and then figuring out where the new information fits into the systems of belief that you have, and working on that every day. 1% better every day over the course of a couple of years, or like, it doesn't have to be sales. It is anything. And you will start to dominate in life because you've accumulated so much more, not just knowledge, but proficiency, the ability to use it. And that at any marketplace is valuable, and maybe not even in the one that you're in, right? But then you have those competencies that we talk about that everybody now wants, because they can put their skill on top of that. And now you're valuable, and now you're successful. And now you start to be the type of employee that people need, rather than you having to find employers that where they need you. Where you want to be a person where they need you more than you need them, and you can become that type of person. And then you own your destiny. You go where you want. You do what interests to you. You work with the great people on the great projects and the great ideas. But you got to build that base first. 1% better every day. That's where it starts.